New videos every day. Life, wisdom.
I'm Psychetruth correspondent Karina Rachel. Today on the Truth Talks, I'm joined by Gwen Olson. She's an author, speaker, and health activist who's also a former employee of the pharmaceutical industry. We've all seen the pharmaceutical drug ads encouraging us to ask our doctor about this new drug or that new drug. And my question is, if you have ever asked your doctor about a drug that you saw advertised on television or in a magazine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me again.
Recently, you were featured in a documentary called Doctored, and in it, you stated that when you were in the pharmaceutical industry, you, among your other colleagues there, actually called doctors drug whores. And that really stood out to me. Will you talk a little bit about that and why maybe they had developed this nickname from you guys?
I'd be happy to. In fact, I think that probably did raise quite a few eyebrows initially when I made that statement. But anyone who's in the industry knows that behind closed doors, the way that we talk about providers isn't necessarily the way that we treat them to their faces. So what I was really trying to relay was, in particular, in the profession of psychiatry, anytime that we were going to have a meeting or we were going to do some sort of a marketing venture and we needed professionals, doctors to assist us in those things, then we would talk about which quote-unquote drug whores that we wanted to get to do the promotion for us. And I just wanted to make doctors aware of that because I think that they're under the misconception that the pharmaceutical industry respects them and that they are partnering with them and actually advancing their careers in many ways. And what, in fact, the pharmaceutical industry is doing is they are cajoling and making fun of doctors behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. They do not respect doctors that play their agendas and use their marketing materials and don't ask critically intelligent questions. It's just like any other whore. The pimp may pay them well, or the John may pay them well, but they certainly don't respect them. And that's what doctors need to be aware of, particularly psychiatrists, because they sell their services to any manufacturer, and that's known across the board.
Right. And so kind of the approach from the pharmaceutical industry is, you know, who are we going to find today that's going to go pimp our product for us?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Who will play ball? And if they don't play ball, for example, one time I had a dinner meeting where I had invited a local group of cardiologists to come and hear about a new product and brought in a doctor from our speakers bureau who was from out of town. But that particular doctor got sick, and so I had to use a local physician that evening in order to have him, take over the meeting. And I gave him the slides and everything that he was supposed to use, and he refused. He told me, no, I've made my own presentation and I have my own slides. And as he got up and started presenting to the group of doctors, he actually went outside of our marketing direction. And my district manager immediately hightailed it over to my side of the table. Are you hearing him? Do you hear what he's saying? You had better get in there and tomorrow, because the following day was a business day, you had better get in there tomorrow and do damage control. You had better let this man know that if he doesn't play ball, he will not be on our speakers bureau next week. So what I essentially had to do was I had to go in and reprimand the doctor for not utilizing the company's materials, because what the doctor was doing was giving fair, balanced information. That wasn't permissible. We weren't going to pay him to do that.
Wow. So there was a clear knowledge that the information that you, as the pharmaceutical representatives, were responsible for giving was not completely transparent, was not 100%, factual, or at least perhaps omitted some of the things that this doctor you're speaking about was wanting to include, and you kind of, I guess, got pat on the wrist and they said, oh, no way,
Well, see, this is a subject matter that we've talked about in previous videos, and that is the minimization of information. Mm-hmm. That is the tactic that is the most deadly that the pharmaceutical practices on a consistent basis with doctors, is that they minimize the side effects and the dangers of products. So I'm not saying that the information that they were trying, or the slides that they were trying to get the doctor, was false information. What I'm saying is that it was semantically skewed to where that it didn't impact the physicians in the same manner that it was had it been presented with a fair balance. Mm-hmm. And that's what the physician was trying to do that had stepped in at the last minute to take over the meeting. He was trying to give fair balanced information and presenting both sides of the story, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, which is what would be the responsible way to sell a product. But that's not the way that it's done in the industry. In the industry, they want everything slanted towards their favor. And so when they have these opinion leaders go out and speak to other doctors, mm-hmm. they want to make sure it's their marketing bylines that are being given.
Right. So if we were to, talk about the education that a doctor has about drugs, and about different pharmaceutical drugs, is it correct that the majority of the information that any particular doctor would have about a drug actually comes from the manufacturer of that drug, from the pharmaceutical representative? That's correct.
And the vast majority of the education that doctors receive after they're out of medical school is either funded by or provided by the pharmaceutical industry. So even though they're continuing education classes that may be done by outside providers, they're generally given the materials and information by the pharmaceutical manufacturers as well as funded by the pharmaceutical manufacturers. So there is no fair balanced information being presented to doctors after they get out of medical school. And quite frankly, even the information that they're getting while in medical school is tainted marketing information, and they undergo the same kind of bribery and sales tactics that's utilized throughout the industry on all professionals.
So when we think about asking our doctor about whatever drug it may be, we continually see the ads. If you experience anxiety or depression or this thing or that thing, ask your doctor about X. I think that it's important for people, consumers, as we are viewed by the industry, which is trying to sell us things, that consumers need to recognize that when we're going and asking our doctor about these drugs, the information that we receive from the doctor is coming from the pharmaceutical industry. Not directly, but really most of the information that doctor has came from the pharmaceutical industry. So most of the information that they are then relaying to us is, all of the best points of the drug. That's with correct. These kind of conveniently leaving out some of the less attractive side effects.
Or they may not even be aware of them if they haven't been presented to them. Again, a lot of doctors depend on pharmaceutical reps to get their information. Mm-hmm. And if they're not getting good, fair, balanced information, then what they're parroting to their patients is not good, fair, balanced information. Okay. Therefore, you are not, as a patient, giving informed consent because you have not been informed. Mm-hmm. That is the crux of my mission, is to make sure people are aware that they are allowed to give conformed consent in order to be drugged. That means that they have a legal right to informed consent. And if you're not asking questions, you're not being informed, because doctors, first of all, don't have the time. And second of all, they don't have the fair, balanced information to give you. Right. So that's why it's important to educate ourselves.
Now, among the, different, we've, as you mentioned, talked in previous videos about the different, really tactics of manipulation that you were trained by the pharmaceutical industry to go in and use on these doctors so that you could convince them to prescribe your drug over whatever competitive drug there might be. that's a conflict of interest,
You
right?
think?
to be, so you have this product and you want to sell this product, and so you're going to be the one who goes and tells everybody all the benefits and assures everybody that it's safe. Obviously with informed consent, this idea that I think, consumers need to know that the information they're receiving from their doctor is maybe just half the story. What other recommendations would you give to people who are maybe considering asking their doctor about something, their doctor about a drug?
I always tell people that, again, I've said this before, in the age of information, to be ignorant is a choice. So you have access to a computer. You need to Google or get on another search engine and look up the names of the drugs that you're given or prescribed. And then, again, you put behind that name of that drug controversy and side effects, and then explore what other people or what other articles and things that may be out there. And also, if you know your disease state, then you can do a little due diligence around your disease state and see what the recommended treatments are. But I also would recommend Googling or looking up alternative treatments so that you can be well informed about what your options are, because you need to understand that there is an initiative to quiet and to discredit a lot of the alternative healthcare community because they are directly cutting into the profits of the pharmaceutical industry. If we take care of ourselves and proactively start eating better, if we exercise, if we source clean water, if we remove the toxins from our environment, including our bodies, then we have a much healthier environment overall to express ourselves as human beings in, and we may not need their drugs. And that's a no-no. That's the reason why that we're bombarded with drug ads on television and in magazines and everywhere that you look, is because they are creating the demand. You notice that they'll put, the side effects of the drugs will come at the bottom of the ad in small print, and it'll be, running, you may grow a third eye, your arm may fall off, you may vomit incessantly, you may have a stroke, you may, the side effects are horrific. And then you have to realize that's a small percentage of the side effects that actually will appear in the package insert. And then at the bottom of the ad, you're directed to go to Ladies' Home Journal for the rest of the ad. Like, we're all going to just run right out and buy that so that we can have good information. So they are very adept at withholding and hiding negative data and presenting only the positive, only the flowery people running through the fields and being happy and, and all of this and that. We are being sold down the river by a very astute group of marketing, profiteering criminals. I can't say it any more succinctly than that. Anybody who buys into this and becomes a victim after they hear this presentation, the onus is on them, because we're going to have to start taking personal responsibility for what happens to us. We're so eager as a culture to give our power away to authority figures because they have letters behind their names, or because they're someone that has celebrity that we've seen on television. For crying out loud, people even started treating me like a celebrity after I'd been on the news or after they'd seen videos about me on YouTube. What is our fascination with other people just because they're on television, that we think that they know something that we don't know, that we disown our own innate intelligence, that we don't follow our own common sense or our own instincts, that we hand our power over to these people along with our money and let them destroy us, and then we all sit around and whine about it. We have got to, as a population, take responsibility. We've got to start educating ourselves. We are being dumbed down purposefully. And the reason that we're being dumbed down is so that we don't have enough information to make informed decisions to where we can protect ourselves and our families. That is my mission, is to make people understand it's up to them, and they have nobody to blame but themselves if they don't do their homework.
And I think it's important to, recognize that the society we're living in right now, we've got the deck stacked against us. Because, as you mentioned, we have multi-billion-dollar industries throwing out tons of marketing at us constantly, influencing what we see on television, because they are the ones that, I think it's important to recognize that, when we see ads on television, especially those primetime ads during big shows or during the Super Bowl or whatever, that costs a lot of money. Whoever is buying that ad, they've spent huge amounts of money for that advertising space. And then so that network is beholden to them. That's their advertiser. That's the one who's paying the bill for them. And so largely, it's not just within the ads themselves, but all of the information that's coming out of the television that is, contributing into this positive, positive portrayal of pharmaceuticals and of these drugs, because they have so much monetary control, so much financial power. And we as consumers are kind of coming through this, and I kind of imagine it like a pinball machine or a maze. We're constantly on all sides being up against, this information that is coming out of the pharmaceutical industry at huge, huge, huge amounts. And as a consumer, we do have to do a little bit of, going out of our way or going out of our time to educate ourselves, because it's not that this information is being thrown at us. It's the disinformation that's being thrown at us. And it's a challenge. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who feel, I don't have time or I'm overwhelmed and all this. And you actually said in a previous video, we're talking about our health, the health of our bodies, the health of our children. What is it worth to us to have our health, to have our ability to think, to have our energy and, absence of pain enough just to live our lives? And really ask that question of, what is it worth? Is it worth that extra little bit of time to do a little bit of research yourself?
And how do you spend your time is what I ask people who tell me they don't have time. Right. Do you watch football? Do you have cocktails in the evening? What do you do with your time? Because there is something that has to be less important than your life and your health.
Right.
And that's the thing that you need to eliminate. Playing Farmville on the computer or, spending an hour or two on Facebook. It may be wonderful, but make sure you're spending time on Facebook learning about something instead of just sharing, fluffy cat pictures. Go to some of the good information that's out there and educate yourself. Because if you're depending on your doctors and your government, now the government's going to be taking over healthcare to be responsible for you, then you just need to look at history and you need to look historically at how the government has handled everything else that they've been assigned. And then if you want them to be responsible for your personal health and your life and your well-being, then kudos to you. I don't, because I happen to know that that's not the way to go. We have to be responsible. And again, I just tell people that to be self-empowered, you have to be knowledgeable. And to be knowledgeable, you have to do research. And if you choose not to be knowledgeable and not to do research, then you have no one to blame but yourself.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really look forward to doing some future videos with you as well.
And I as well. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on The Truth Talks. I hope that you have enjoyed our discussion. I hope that you will let me know if you have ever considered asking your doctor, or if you ever have asked your doctor about a pharmaceutical drug ad you saw on television. Be sure to subscribe to the Psychetruth channel. And if you would like to learn more about Gwen, you can visit her website as well and check out her book, Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for watching.